There were over 250 changes to laser since the last major update, including, you already know what it is.
What are we calling it officially? Is it the PP release?
Plays set in laser will now count towards your PP. With some exceptions. Okay, PP on laser is in a transitionary public testing phase for now, so let's cover what that even means.
There are some limitations, like certain mods will not work. The main one that people care about is adjusting the rate on double time, half time.
So you can still earn PP for the default speeds, right?
Yeah. Also, Lazer has had a lot of PP changes merged in, and they are now live for this release we're doing, which means that the PP values don't actually match stable PP. You know, you could get a higher or lower PP value in Lazer than on stable. After we get things online, the next steps would be to switch off the old PP processor and have all scores, even stable scores, be handled by the new one.
Just to be clear, you can still play and earn PP on the stable build of OS. Today's update just brings PP online for Lazer 2 and imports your stable scores to Lazer's database. But scores aren't fully synced between the two clients. If you set a score in stable, it'll show up in Lazer. But if you set a score in Lazer, it'll not exist in stable. And this even affects your total PP values.
So if you've got scores on Lazer and then you go back to stable and play, your PP will actually probably drop a bit. That's going to also be fixed after we bring the new PP processor online for all scores.
Another thing to keep in mind, scores on the website will experience a bit of a transition too.
The website is going to have a little checkbox which puts you in Lazer mode. And when you're in Lazer mode, you will see all scores set on Lazer and all scores set in stable on the same leaderboard using the new scoring. But if you check that checkbox off, it's going to go back to the classic scoring method and everything will be as it was. This is basically the toggle being like, no, I want to play as I was until now, or yep, bring it on, bring Lazer on.
And the biggest reason why PP is in a transition phase, there could still be a leaderboard reset. I'm going to be as clear about this as I can. As of right now, any score you set in Lazer might disappear, including their PP.
When we push this out, there's going to be rough edges. We haven't done anywhere near as much testing as we would hope to have done. To me, this is all normal because this is how I've developed DOS until now. That's how the original scoring was developed. So, But I think people these days expect something a bit more robust based on things not having changed for 10 years. At the end of the day, we still want to offer this like really good migration experience for people that don't want stuff to break, and that's still going to happen at a later date. That will be the point when we add a button in stable or a drop down to switch to Lazer.
So this release is more for people who just want to try something new.
Yeah, it's for people living on the cutting edge.
That's why it's called Lazer, right?
Yeah, we have a stable beta cutting edge, and I needed to find something that was like more cutting edge than cutting edge, and Lazer, you know, it cuts, it's sharp, so it's sharper than a cutting edge.
By the end of this year, you'll be able to earn PP on your main profile while playing in Lazer.
But we're not going to change the aim for the end of the year. Put it that way. The final release of this year, we're turning on PP for Lazer.
So, end of the year. It's a bit late. What happened? Why the delay?
Why delay? Okay, so at the end of December, Smokey and I went to Comic Market and had a good time there, and everything was a-okay. We were all lined up for the release, and shit hit the fan. My SQL, the database we were using, hit a bug on one of 4 servers, and it corrupted all the data which I just finished importing, like the last 3 or 4 weeks of work. So that was the master, that's the main database, and that's why everything went down for a few hours. First time we've actually had that kind of critical maintenance. I think the last time was probably in 2010 or something. And that wasn't the only thing. So Smokey and myself, to an extent, were frustrated with a lot of the feedback we were getting, and the community was also quite frustrated. We had a lot of things still in the air. It's been a bit of a time where we can reflect on what could have been and aim for something slightly better.
And that brings us to all of this. 12 laser releases since the last video we made. So first off, why were there so many releases?
Oh, because I knew you were away, so I didn't have to stick to the video release cycle. No, but we were actually making a lot of both quality of life changes and balance changes, which I wanted to get immediate feedback on. Yeah, it was just the only way that made sense.
Yeah, that explains the new releases every day for literally a week. Wow.
Oh yeah, I had so much fun. I was able to go back to my my old school release style, which is just push stuff out whenever I felt like it.
So because of all these updates, Lazer is finally in a good state. Or at least a state where Peppy is ready to push things out to a PP-hungry audience. And now for the hard part, covering the changelogs.
I'm trying to get back to where you are, and there's so many releases.
Changelog 1 and Changelog 2 were actually hotfixes for the previous major update. Changelog 3 is where the important updates begin. I already mentioned that scores still unstable were imported to Lazer, but that's more complicated than it sounds. There's no slider head accuracy in stable, so stable scores generally have higher accuracy than laser scores. Comparing two scores directly like this feels unfair, so stable scores are marked with the classic mod. This mod recreates stable gameplay mechanics in Lazer, including the removal of slider head accuracy, at a cost. The classic mod now has a 0.96 score multiplier.
And that means that all scores set in stable are going to be slightly devalued on the new leaderboards. Multipliers are done in such a way that we can change this at a later point. People have suggested making it dynamic per beat map based on how many sliders are in the beat map and how much extra difficulty is added, but you know, it's all a bit too much and we're already dealing with way too many factors, so yep.
How did you decide on 0.96 anyway?
That was just a community vote. Somewhere between 0.9 and 0.98, and 0.96 was the agreed upon number. The only disagreed one is Mania and probably Tycho Cash, but we'll get to that later.
This update also started tackling some of the absurd amount of feedback that developers were now receiving about Lazer, starting with Relax mod players. They wanted to combine the Relax and Perfect mods, but because Relax didn't allow failing, this combination was blocked. So now Relax players can fail, and that was resolved. Stable players trying out Lazer for the first time complained a lot about having to switch tabs to see both leaderboards and map info, so this info box was temporarily added to satisfy them. Then Mania players, to be honest I don't really get this one, but Mania players I guess don't think double time should have a score multiplier, so it was removed. And this was an essential change, I'd say, visible judgments for slider ticks and tails. In stable, if you miss a slider tick or a slider tail, you'll know by the score indicator at the end. Lazer has slider head accuracy though, so you see the score indicator at the head. Then for ticks and tails, there would be nothing, even if you missed. As of this update though, there's tiny icons for missing either of these.
I added a display so you could see when you miss ticks and ends, and people were like, hide that, I want to hide that thing.
Can't people like skin them out or something?
Yes, so that happened in the release after this one.
Changelog 4 has no big changes. It had a long comment from Peppy though.
This is back when we were all prepared to do the release in December. Look how optimistic I was.
The main focus of changelog number 5 and even part of number 6 was HP drain. A few updates ago, Smoogie tried to make Lazer match Stable's HP drain, but that didn't work for various complicated reasons. So through these daily releases, he was able to get feedback on HP drain and fine-tune it to something that players are finally happy with. Changelog 6 also added the ability to change map offset with the plus and minus keys. This is in addition to automatic offset detection, of course. That's not going away. In fact, it's just been expanded on with this global offset setting based on previously played maps. This was around the time you started mass pinging people for feedback, right?
Yes. So we had this group of pro players led by Bubbleman, which were aggregating feedback on a separate Discord server. But it was a small group and it just felt like they didn't convey the opinion of the full scope of the OS community. And that's why we started to do these pings on Discord. We do a ping and there's a focus group on a specific topic and we'll run that for a few hours and then shut it down. One of the ones I was very happy with is Lazer had some offset issues, like audio offset wasn't matching. And we did a focus group of mappers and players to find an offset which everyone was happy with and then rolled that into the game.
Changelog 7 was pretty long. This was crunch time and developers desperately wanted to hit that end of year deadline. Let's say you play with a super tiny cursor size like this. If you paused and didn't know where your cursor was, it could be really hard to find where to resume gameplay. As of now, this unpaused cursor has a minimum size to avoid that confusion. In OS Catch, objects can no longer go out of the playfield. Now you can right-click on any user panel to spectate. And the editor waveform was adjusted by exactly 20 milliseconds. It was just wrong. While all these essential last-minute changes were happening, Evast made a whole new mod, Depth, which is more comprehensible than it looks. Like there's something weirdly intuitive about it, even though you'd think that tracking a bunch of moving objects is impossible. I see the settings categories have text now. Were people complaining about the icons?
Oh, I complained. I was sick of trying to decrypt all the icons we had. And yeah, the menu icons have changed. The toolbar icons, I think they're in a future release. The other thing is I removed the disclaimer screen in this release, so now the game starts up very fast. Welcome to us. And because of that, we had to move the tips that come up in the disclaimer. They're now on the main menu. And also, if you're a supporter, it's like, thank you for your generosity. That's also now on the main menu. Oh, and this is the first build. We have main menu banners. It's amazing the small touches that just make the game feel complete.
Changelog 8 is a bunch of minor hotfixes, and Changelog 9 is pretty short too. The most important thing here is an update to where Mist shows up in Mania's default skin. Skip forward another 2 weeks and we have changelog number 10. This was the first release of the new year, so at this point developers already decided to take their time with the PP release. And that's a good thing, because if they went ahead with an earlier PP release, there might have already been a leaderboard reset to account for this change to slider tail score. So in stable, this click is 30 points, then I get another 100 points for the slider finishing. 130 total. Here it's 30 points for the click, another 30 for following the tail properly, and 300 for the slider finishing without issue. 360 total, so missing the tail impacts score a decent amount. Because of slider head accuracy, this click is worth 300. Missing the tail then gives no points, so this is 300 total. Now this is 300 for the head again, then 30 for the tail. 330 total, so missing the tail had nearly no impact. After this update, the tail was 150. 450 total, so missing the tail actually makes a decent difference on your score, just like it did in stable.
And that value of 150 was decided on by the Bubbleman group, I think. Everyone kind of agreed on it. It's always nice when everyone agrees on a number.
Changelog 11 is another quick one. Previously with Flashlight, if you clicked a circle on top of a slider head, it would do this extra dim effect. That's been fixed. The results screen was also reorganized to put slider ends in a more sensible place. It's next to slider ticks now. And there was some other small stuff that isn't really worth mentioning because we're now at changelog number 12. Okay, fine, there's other stuff too. Replay handling is actually so much better now. You can skip around and it loads significantly faster. You can also skip around while the game is paused. And there's these new control buttons, which include frame-by-frame playback.
Currently the stepping is based on the actual frames recorded to the replay, so it's not local frame rate or anything. It's going to be an interesting one because you'll see the raw inputs from the user, because every frame that you step through is actually coming one-to-one from the replay.
Previously, scores above 95% would be an S, but now it's more like stable. Any misses will turn an S into an A. This was changed because it was hard to tell what scores were full combos at a glance, and the initial plan to create some sort of full combo indicator didn't work out.
There's a lot of different meanings for full combo in the community, and apparently there's like a PFC and an MFC, and I don't even know what MFC stands for, but it was all just too much for me, so I'm like, whatever, we'll just go back to the S is zero miss. It's what people are used to, and honestly, I think it feels good.
For the many people who don't think it feels good, you'll be happy to know that it might change again soon. S and A ranks can be replaced pretty easily, so Peppy is waiting to see scores on actual laser leaderboards before making any concrete decisions.
One of the things which is still pending, and a lot of the fixes are coming in the next release, is performance. We had stuff in a very nice place back a year or so, but as happens with development, you add a lot of new functionality or you change things, and if you're not focusing on performance every single code change you made, which is very hard, you end up regressing. Things gradually get worse and worse, and it turns out we were allocating 500 megabytes per second during gameplay in memory, which is a lot. I've got that down to like 50 megabytes, but there's still more room to improve things, and I think it's already in a place where there's no more stutters, so that's a good starting point.
And this final change was added literally just a few hours ago. You can interpret what it means for yourself.
Welcome to us.
We have a lot of things we want to see happen, like new things, new multiplayer systems, new hit objects. This stuff I'm hoping we can start to see happen this year as we finally get the scoring, get the PP, get the base systems in a good place. But there's still going to be several months of work to tidy things up and just add that final polish. There's a lot of work to still be done. There's way too much work to be done.
So Lazer may be released, but it's not nearly finished.
Unfortunately. Well, unfortunately for our sanity, I guess.